In the next 6 days, 76 players will clash as they fight for the right to call themselves an Intel Extreme Masters champion, joining the likes of First, SOS, Zest, and Pult, and also become one of the top 8 to claim themselves a spot at BlizzCon here in 2017. A warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the desk as we begin things for the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice and find out who is going to be moving all the way through to become our champion. I'm Kyle Harris. I will be your desk host throughout the next 6 days. And to my right, we do have a lovely array of gentlemen indeed. We have Rotterdam, Artosis, and Todd. Guys, excited for the tournament? It's a big one.
Absolutely, always a pleasure to be here at the World Championship. Good to have you back.
Oh, thank you.
You nailed that intro here, right there. Not quite Apollo level yet, but we'll get there eventually. You know, a lot of good players here are there, and an unusual format with initial brackets to then move into the group stage, which is going to be 6 players per group and round robin. That's not something that we see very often, but that definitely will spice things up, I think.
Well, that's what's so exciting, I think, is not only do we have Koreans and foreigners going at it already so early in the WCS season, you know, something that's always exciting to see, but the fact that it's a huge open tournament. When is the last time you saw stats in an open tournament, or anyone really for that matter? I mean, it's crazy though. It's going to be awesome.
There's some amazing standout players here, not only in the open brackets that we've got coming up, but also that have already qualified through to the 12 that are currently in the groups. You've got people like Innovation here, our previous Intel Extreme Masters Gyeonggi champion. Is he somebody who could even make a repeat performance, do you think, throughout the days?
Absolutely. You know, last year during the Intel Extreme Masters here in Poland, I kept talking about the power ranking, and Todd made a lot of fun of me. He's like, why do you keep referring to this power ranking? Because I think they're very fun. And Innovation was actually ranked first in that power ranking. He's absolutely one of the top dogs. But there are so many players to be incredibly excited over here.
That's right. Of course, you've got a lot of the foreigners, like Showtime, for example, who has really stood atop the foreign scene right now. Do you think so, or is there somebody that can contest him at the moment?
Well, I mean, you always have to look at like some of the really big name players, such as Neeb. I mean, Neeb PvP, you can put him up against anybody, and he's not necessarily going to lose that. Of course, Nurcho's always up there, Snoot, a few other names are always floating in the top as well.
Yeah, Harstem, I think, as well. And actually, Harstem, in an interview recently, said that he thinks that the best foreigner right now is Serral. So going to this tournament with some of these questions, you know, that we're going to get answered is really cool as well.
Well, he did come through the European qualifiers, so that is pretty impressive to say the least. Let's take a look now at the open brackets that we're going to be starting things out for today. Our first one does indeed have stats all the way to the top. Now remember, it is a double elimination open bracket, and 3 players from each bracket will go through. Today we'll be covering 2 of those open brackets, as we can take a look at the second one here in just a moment as well, to look down the players that are going to be playing out throughout the day. But of course, in open bracket 1, who really kind of stands out to you as some of the big names?
For me personally, it's absolutely Mamba, because Mamba actually recently had a couple of great wins in the Wardy Team League over the likes of Nathanius and myself. Well, if you can't do that, then you're one man to perhaps take it all here at the Intel Extreme Masters.
Maybe. Who beats Rotterdam? Todd, is that something that's a hard
Not Pig, apparently.
Not Pig. And then, of course, we do have our second bracket down the line. So, again, in terms of the names that actually go into these open bracket, very big names, considering that they're in a position where there's only 3 to qualify through each of these, right?
Yeah, only 3. And you look at some of the brackets, like this first one, there's like 5 names in there that I want to see move on. And then, for instance, I think it's bracket C is just like, there's more Koreans than there are spots, which is something you don't normally expect. It's like if a Korean loses, normally that's kind of an upset. But here, we're just going to see a lot of them go out early anyways.
Something else I'm incredibly excited over is that even though all these players obviously dream of making top 3 in these brackets, because that means they will advance and they will keep the dream alive of making a very big payday, but even just making it into lower bracket, round 3, it will secure yourself of at least $600, and you can even go up to like $1,000 if you make it to the group stage. I think that stuff is really fun, and that's incredibly motivating for the local scene as well. Because if you're an if you're an 18, 19-year-old player and you get $600, you can suddenly justify playing StarCraft that much. You can be like, hey, instead of working in the supermarket for, you know, $200-300 a month, I can actually try to make it in the Intel Extreme Masters and get some money as well, even if you don't go all the way. And that excites me. 44 players will get paid. I don't think this has ever happened in a StarCraft II tournament where the top 44 will walk away with prize money, and it really excites me.
Exactly. It's the biggest StarCraft tournament in years, with how many players are here and how many players are getting rewarded for their goals. 250,000 across the board, with 100,000 for first place. For now, though, we can head over down to the player areas with a very familiar face. It's Mix. In a bit. We'll get on to that in just a moment. Of course.
Not your fault, James. Not your fault.
Oh, well.
Even happens at the Oscars. Don't worry about it.
You should have played camera check them in.
Indeed. Okay. So let's take a look back at bracket 1 in just a moment after we actually do go to SMIX. So fun times.
No worries, James. Nothing can beat the Oscars from last night, so we're all good. Of course, I am here at the tournament area where we have 16 players from Bracket 1 warming up and getting ready for their matches throughout the day. Now, of course, to my left, we have the main stage where we have the heavy hitters that we expect will be doing very, very well to keep an eye on. So over there, we can already see the Wunderwunsch TLO, his teammate Snoot, who was, of course, last year's Katowice runner-up. And, of course, lastly, we have Stats, who already made top 4 at the GSL. So a lot of tough competition we're going to be seeing here, and it's going to be especially hard for these guys to my right, the contenders, the challengers, so to speak, because they're the ones who have a lot more to prove, and they're trying to make a name for themselves here at the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice. Now, as we head throughout the day, we will be speaking with these players and hearing their thoughts with various interviews between the matches. But for now, we're going to get ready for our first match of the day. So let's head back to some familiar faces we just saw. Claire's, take it away.
Much. SMIX, we saw us for a little bit too long during the transition on there, but that's fine, that's fine. So, of course, we now need to look at Bracket 1, as we do have this open bracket about to unfold. And our first match, actually, is going to be DnS going up against DaNa. DnS, as of late, has been on a little bit of a rise, wouldn't you say so?
Absolutely, yeah. Just recently beat Elaser and Showtime over in O Gaming organized tournament, the Underdogs. And he's just been quite on fire. On ladder as well, consistently in top 4, top 5. And it's funny because I was just talking to him and he was like, well, you know, ladder doesn't really tell much. And I told him, I beg to differ, actually. It's a good indicator of how well you're doing right now. Look at Cyril. He's been atop the ladder for some time, and he's now doing super well and considered one of the best foreigners from some of these pro gamers. Not results-wise yet. So DnS is also one of those guys that I think could definitely break into these top foreign players eventually in one of these tournaments. This could be the one here.
Yeah, and I think that there's multiple players in this bracket just like DnS that we hear from the pro gamers who get to play against them all day, even though we don't see them do, you know, fantastically well in an actual big tournament like DnS, as Todd mentioned. Then we have Lambo, who a lot of people have been talking about for quite some time as being a very strong Zerg player. And then a completely underrated guy, I think, in Elroy, who even almost made it into GSL in previous years. So, like, there are quite a few stacked players here that could make some upsets.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before we kind of go deeper into that DnS versus DaNa matchup that we've got coming up, let's talk about some of the other players in this bracket. You've got people like TLO in there, people like Bly. Are they going to be able to kind of make some upsets throughout these brackets? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, TLO is always capable of making an upset, and I believe he recently had a bootcamp as well with the Team Liquid guys together. And most of the time, whenever they do have a Team Liquid bootcamp, the following weeks, they always perform pretty well, because in general, it doesn't seem like they just get good work done. They also seem to be having a blast with each other, and I think it's always incredibly important. You're happy in life, you're enjoying yourself before you go into a big tournament. Remove some of the stress, so I can definitely see TLO do well. And I can keep telling you, but Mamba, man, he took me out.
He killed you.
He took me out. You have to be able to do something to do that. So
yeah.
I was on a roll that day.
Okay, it was a good roll.
TLO wasn't too high, though, on the power rankings on Team Liquid.
No,
according to it, he would probably finish. He would barely not make it to the top 24, I think.
Just to check real quick, was Tasia #1 on those rankings?
No.
Because normally...
Innovation.
Oh, okay. just making sure, yeah.
Innovation, yeah. Looking for the back-to-back, that's for sure. The one thing that I want to see is, or ask you guys, is in this open bracket, is anyone going to topple Stats? You can happily just say no.
No.
Yeah, let's just,
that's not going to happen.
Let's just kill this storyline. No.
Okay.
It's like, I guess the only, maybe TLO has a chance if he gets there, but I think that PvZ right now is reasonable for Protoss, and Stats is like top 4 GSL. He's killing it. Finals of the last IEM in Gyeonggi.
Yeah.
Should not happen.
Should not happen.
Yeah, the thing with Stats too is like going into this tournament, he just beat Innovation in the GSL quarterfinals. Like, spoiler alerts. I don't think too many people are going to be able to beat him in this tournament. He may be the favorite to make the finals with Innovation once again.
I think Innovation is very angry about this, though.
Probably.
Machines do have emotions, because
he's
red hot.
He did not show on his face.
He's overheating right now, Todd. You know?
Really? Just tuning into his stream, he looked the same as usual.
No. Inside he's boiling. I mean, that's what I had last week. My computer looked the same as usual. I turned it on and the power supply blew up. So better make sure we keep Innovation a little cool here. He's upset.
We don't want him to end up like your computer.
All right, I'm drawing this in. Okay, so also you got people like Snoot in there. Snoot, who for a long time was considered to be one of the best foreigners, or the best non-Korean in the world. Now, there's huge amounts of contention for that spot. So does Snoot have a potential good run through this bracket as well? What do you think?
He's got the tough side of it, I would say. I mean, I guess the side with stats is always tough as well, but there's a lot of names in there that can knock him out, like ZVZ matchups. You never know. That's a volatile matchup. He could end up falling in one of those. And, of course, the match that we're kind of looking forward to for a spot there in the winter bracket final, which would make him go into group stage, would be him versus Harstem.
Yep.
And Harstem is, you know, always very strong against Zerg.
I had a chat with him, and he didn't sound that confident against Protoss. He said, like, no European Zerg. He's doing well against Protoss right now, which is definitely a pro gamer's exaggeration. I was like, what about Cyril? He's like, okay, actually Cyril's the exception. So maybe not that confident if he was to face Harstem, but I mean, we've seen Snoot in the past crush the best Worlds Protoss. So.
Yeah.
You know, James, I think in the upcoming 2 days we're going to see a lot of amazing matches in these open brackets. But I think out of the 4 open brackets, this is the one where we do have our clear 3 favorites. And it should really be Stats, Snoot, and Harstem. Maybe not necessarily in that order. Maybe Harstem does beat Snoot, but then I still expect Snoot to win. If one of those would suddenly lose early on, obviously not looking at stats, but maybe Snoot or Harstem, then it becomes very difficult for them. If you go through the winner bracket, it's just 3 best of 3s, and then you're pretty much almost there. If they would somehow lose in the first round, then suddenly you look at a very annoying bracket where you have to survive 4 or 5 rounds against all pretty capable players. But I think out of the 4 open brackets that we have, this is the one where we have the 3 overwhelming favorites.
Okay, fair play, fair play. Now let's take focus onto DnS versus DaNa. Of course, I asked you about DnS and how he has risen a little bit in the ranks in the foreign scene, of course. But talk to me about DaNa, because he's a name that he's been around in the European scene forever and ever. I remember casting him in Go for SC2s like 4 or 5 years ago, but really hasn't had that spike in LAN success. In fact, I think this is probably one of his first Intel Extreme Masters LANs of all time. So can he upset? What does he bring to the table here?
It's very unlikely. Like, he's one of those Zergs that I think flies under the radar because he's, compared to the top players, maybe a little bit unexceptional. And on the other side, you have one guy in DnS who's just waiting to have like a real breakthrough performance in an offline event, who just beat Elaser, who's rated much higher than DaNa, and who has a style as well that's maybe a little bit different. Like, he plays super aggressive. You know, he will very often open Oracle, do adept drops here and there, go into charge loss, send them all over the place, start killing a lot of drones, and then it's the beginning of the end. So I'm very worried for DaNa here.
Echoed?
Yeah, no, DaNa is just not a guy that we've seen very much of, whereas DnS is one of those names that's on the tip of everyone's tongue, just waiting for that breakout. So I'm really expecting him to be able to take him down, but neither of them have had great LAN experience. So, you know, that can get under your skin, especially if people are expecting you to do well. In the case of DnS, a lot of his fellow pros are here. They're like, okay, we think he's going to, you know, maybe get 4th place in the bracket, maybe even break through today and making that top 3. But that can make him put pressure on himself and make him mess up against a very capable DaNa.
Yeah, DnS does have some experience, though. I mean, he made it to like 2-3 Homestead Cup in a row already, so it's not like his first time here. And I obviously, like, when it comes to a big stage where people do expect of him, that's perhaps kind of a new playing field for him. But I still expect DnS, at least here in the first round, to be pretty damn solid. It's really cool as well. You know, he used to be kind of overshadowed by both Lilbao and Drogo, and I would still say that Drogo is a better Protoss than DnS. But DnS is definitely creeping up there, and obviously Lilbao is not with us anymore. That sounds very sad, but he's playing Overwatch. But you know, that's still a little bit. I made it sound like he died. He's like, he's not with us.
Hey, it's the off-season right now in Overwatch. He said he was going to reinstall StarCraft and play some.
I would be
before
excited.
He comes back.
I don't know. We don't see Lurkers anymore. Maybe Sentry Blink Stalker works again. Might see him win 30 Gs. You never know. But no, I think it's really cool to see DnS really making some moves and making some waves in the scene. But I don't think he's totally there yet.
Okay, well, we shall see, because I think we are now ready to go to our commentator team for our first series of the day. Make sure to remember, though, that we, throughout the day, will be filling you in on what is going on throughout the brackets, because there are a lot of games going on at any particular time. So let's head over to our casters for DnS going up against DaNa.
What is up, guys? It's Tasis and Maynard here at the Intel Extreme Masters, and we are starting off our first best of 3 here early on today with DnS versus DaNa.
That's right, and the guys touched it on the desk. Very, very excited to be here for the Intel Extreme Masters Season 11. It's my 3rd time here. I think you guys haven't been here.
It's my first time.
Really exciting to see you and Dan make it down here for this huge event.
I've been so hyped to come down here.
Yep.
It's going to be an amazing day. We've got 6 days of StarCraft II action, and I don't know, man. I'm super hyped, dude. We're going to be going into this game in just a moment as our two players are now ready. DnS versus DaNa, what are your thoughts on this before we get started?
Well, it's hard not to heavily favor DnS in this matchup because he is a guy, he's had some pretty good results recently online. He's beaten Showtime, he's beaten a Laser, so clearly his PvZ is quite strong. The balance of PvZ, especially in Europe, has been brought up as well, and it's obviously European versus European here. DaNa, or DaNa, tomato. He hasn't had any results really for a while to speak of. He's kind of an enigma, and that could be scary. He may just pop up something crazy, he might be high level, but we know for a fact that DnS is high level. He's a top 16, top 20 European player. He is a formidable force for DaNa, the Polish Zerg, here to beat.
It's always interesting when you have a tournament like this one because it's so much about stamina. There are so many players that you have to go to if you're going to win this thing. So many possible outcomes. It's so different from some of the other tournaments we see out there where it's like these guys have a week or two to prepare for this one match. This is like the ultimate StarCraft II marathon here at the Intel Extreme Masters.
This is really reminiscent of a lot of the older open bracket tournaments, the old MLGs, where there is just so many players that we need to get through to get to our top 8 here. That's going to go to Spodek. And actually, this is 76 players.
Yeah,
Baseless.
76 players.
We have a lot of games, 6 days of games to go through.
There really is something special about winning a tournament like this one because you have to. On any given day, man, you can have some bad games, you can have some hiccups in your play, but here we're going to see who can actually just tear through it. All right, guys, we are now in game number 1. Tell your friends to join us here at the Intel Extreme Masters. In the bottom right, in the blue, he is DaNa.
And the very scary Protoss here in the bottom left here of Nuco Precinct. This is the French Protoss DnS.
Maynard, we are back together.
Finally.
At last.
At last.
2 hype casters in one match. What will happen? I don't know.
Probably a lot of hype, Tasteless.
We're going to see GG at the same time, and then they're going to be like, what's that sound? They're going to be like, wee! A little GG baby has been born because 2 hype casters are together.
Oh, man, you can't pull this on me so early, Tasteless. This is the first 2 minutes of game 1, and you're already making me exhausted.
Already out of control, man.
Yeah, all right. Oh, this is insane. So
I want to say something.
No,
I actually really like these parts of the tournament, right? Where we're super early on. These 2 guys, I think obviously people aren't expecting them to win the whole thing, but let's see what they can do, how far they can go. This is such an exciting thing as a player, when you're part of a tournament this big where it's like everybody who's good gets in.
Yeah, low ground wall off expand here for DnS. Pretty standard stuff from both players, actually. Not a whole lot to bring up. I mean, I guess that, PvZ is one of those matchups that's kind of starting to, there's a lot of things that you can do in this matchup, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of things for the Protoss to do. The Zerg is trying to figure out how to get back on top of this one, because especially in Europe, it's been favoring the Protoss for a little bit here. Like, it's the popularized Archon drop that a lot of the Koreans have been using made it to Europe. That's been hitting the ladder a lot. There are people that use it, like, are you a Stargate Protoss? Are you an adept timing guy? It's a lot of things you can do as a Protoss. The Zerg, they're the reactionary race, and there's a lot to react to. So scouting's going to be very key here for DaNa.
Yeah, that's always been, especially in the early part of any game of StarCraft. The Zerg is always sort of trying to read the opposing player, see how many more drones they can squeeze out. Okay, what are they teching to? Can I find the tech? If I do, let's see how I respond. Otherwise, I got to use what other intel I have to try to get that read and react to my opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. So speed coming down here for DaNa, DnS, just going for that adept scout after getting gateway, and he's going for just checking to see if that third hatchery gets down. He can delay it a little bit annoying. Not really a huge game changer there, very standard, and he is going to go straight into that Stargate tech after making that first adept.
So this adept poke is going to come in here, and one of the functions of this is obviously to scout, but another one is to pressure the Zerg into not making drones. That's basically, especially in the matchup Protoss versus Zerg, and it's basically always been like this. The less drones you can make the Zerg make, the better off you're going to be later on. So Protosses that don't do anything to put that pressure on are just going to let the Zerg get more and more ahead. So he actually opts to shade in here. He's now in between between all 3 bases, trying to see if he can come in here and maybe get a drone.
I mean, the Adept is quite tanky, can take a lot of shots from that Queen. There's not really any units to speak of here for DaNa, and it's 2 shots to kill a drone here. Does save one of them, loses one. Makes a spore there and cancels it to save that last drone there. And 2 Adepts, you know, we can see that they do 2-shot drones, so 2 Adepts does mean 1 shot. And you want to get 2 Adepts into that mineral line to have an easy-peasy drone murder fest there. And we can see that
an easy-peasy murder fest.
An easy-peasy murder fest. I think there was a metal band back in the day that had that name. It was a pretty edgy band. But yeah, so Oracle here coming out for DNS after with Adepts on the ground. And DaNa's going to go for Roaches, so he's going to have to rely on Queens and Spores, of course, to deal with those Oracles.
So he's managed to keep those Lings from actually penetrating the base. One thing I do want to note is this is a lot of pressure for these 2 players. These guys are both very good.
Yeah, they have a lot to prove.
They've got a lot to prove, but it's a little bit weird when you're in a tournament, there's a camera on you, you're playing, you're realizing, okay, this is me as a player being documented here.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how these guys are going to react as this game goes further and further on, because, you know, some of that anxiety, some of that stress, some of that pressure can start to get to you as you move on. Looks like we got an Oracle coming in here now. Nice. Taking out 2 drones, make that 3, and now 4.
5 drones, actually. And he still has the Oracle alive. Oh, actually, not microing that. Nearly loses it. And now with the Adepts coming in here, finding a nice position between these mineral lines, making it as inefficient as possible for DaNa to have to deal with. He does clean it up, but losing 6 drones does hurt a lot.
Yeah, I like what he did. He got in there, he got some kills, but it wasn't the cleanest harass, right? He did lose those 2 Adepts. That Oracle is really badly bruised. If he miscontrols that Oracle any further, he's going to lose it.
Second Oracle, though, Tasteless.
Yeah, 2 Oracles coming in here now. Now notice he makes the one with more HP coming to the front here, but does not overextend.
Yeah, the Queen can easily right-click on that hurt Oracle. A few shots to get it down to those shields. Counter-attacking with these Lings is going to get a pylon, but definitely no Nexus cancel or anything here. And he's forced to use his lava to make drones instead of units. And a couple of these Roaches heading across the field. I'm not super sure why. I don't know if he can...
Yeah, I'm not sure that these Roaches are going to be able to do that much.
Like
he does need to get a pylon up here to make sure he has the pylon cannon.
For sure,
But this is just not a substantial enough army. So he's going to go ahead and withdraw here, which is totally fine. We do have a Void Ray being made, and this has become pretty popular, I'd say, in the last 2 to 3 months here. In Legacy of the Void, getting that Void Ray out, it really makes Roaches absolutely not viable whatsoever.
And now with the latest patches, the last couple patches, the Void Ray can be microed now. It actually has the ability to be microed. It was a very slow unit before, and it's very, very key for stopping Roaches and Ravages, actually, if DaNa wants to go that path.
So we actually have the Robo being made over here at the 3rd. Now, obviously, if the 3rd is attacked and taken out, that's going to be pretty disastrous because Protoss can't lose Robo Tech. Sometimes we see that made at the main or in the 2nd base. But having this over here, if he does try to push out with Immortals later on, that'll be pretty handy as well.
So Zerg wants to be, you know, a little bit higher on the drone count here, and he's forced to replenish these numbers because the harassment here of DNS has been quite nice. And these 2 Oracles together really shred worker lines. It's very, very tough for the Zerg to deal with without more Queens, without Hydralisks. We do have Hydralisks on the way. I wonder if he wants to go for Lurker Tech here. This is something we're starting to see a little bit more in ZVP. The Lurker is a very scary unit. He's just getting muscular augments here for the Hydras, getting that supply cap ready, but DNS is ready for his next step of the plan. A bit more harassment here, but a Warp Prism and Twilight Council going down and back at home.
Yeah, really nicely done there with the Oracle. He gets in there, he does some damage, he only loses the shields. Meanwhile, we have the Warp Prism coming up here. Now, Zerg is teching to a lot of Hydras. This little gateway wall that we have down here is not going to be that helpful in a moment like this. That's really much more handy with like Ling, Roach, or I mean, anything that doesn't have the range to really punish somebody. So Protoss might be at a funny spot if he is attacked over here in this area, because this is going to make a little bit of a funnel that his army has to go through that Zerg might be able to stay back at and damage the gateways, maybe even get the Nexus.
That's a great start there. And I mean, if you look at the supply here, Tasteless, we have got a lot of army here for DaNa. And he's going to be hitting before these gateway finishes, which means it's going to be very tough for DNS to reinforce this army. And he needs a lot of Adepts here to deal with his Hydralisk force.
Now the Hydras are going to be, well, almost just barely out of range of that pylon.
They're going to kill the gateways.
Yeah, he's going to get the gateways, and this is going to knock out 3 production facilities, which is very critical. This is really where the gateway explosion kicks in. When you get a 3rd base like that. So losing that gateway, it looks like he's going to keep the other ones. But what we're seeing here from DaNa, excuse me, is he wants to go for the kill move. He's not going to try to shave off these gates and play a longer game. He actually wants to end this game right here, right now.
Lots of stasis mines going down here for DNS. Will it be enough, though? That's a lot of Hydras. Ravages joining the field as well. These Lings getting stasis mine is not hugely bad for DaNa. The real meat and potatoes of his army here are the Ravages and the Hydras. So much DPS here.
Okay, so this is like a really tough spot here for the Protoss to defend, but it looks like Zerg's oh, sick! He got in there, got all these probes! Amazing play! And you know what? That's the kind of damage you need to do. And the rest of his army got out. No harm, no foul there for the Zerg.
Oh, that's a dead Archon, Tasteless.
I think it...
Yeah, the Ling's gonna get it. Wow. Jeez. So that is a lot of damage here from these Hydras and the Lings. He's killing so many with 32 probes going down here. The Oracle's trying to deal with it, and they will clean it up, but he has taken critical damage. He's down 60 supply, and the army is still heavily in favor of the Zerg. The production hasn't been enough for the Protoss to keep up with this pacing here of DaNa.
The pressure is on, but the Protoss' army is starting to get more and more sophisticated here. He's going to have to loop around this obstruction at the top of the screen and try to close in on this, but it's not going to be easy. This is a pretty threatening Zerg army.
Yeah, these Archons are quite threatening as well, but it doesn't. He has a few force fields here, and he could engage this well. We'll see if he has enough to shred through these very high DPS Zerg units. The Zealots coming in for the left, and the Oracle's coming in to help as well. Will they be enough? He does deflect him, but he has taken so much damage from this initial push, though, Tasteless. Will it be enough? He's still losing probes back at home. 53 probes have gone down to DaNa during this attack.
I hadn't realized that until we went back there and saw those links. Really nicely done. But this counterattack is pretty serious. Zerg needs to muster up enough forces to drive this back. The sentry's now going to merge in with the rest of this army. Did Zerg overextend? Will Protoss be able to punish?
Well, the Archon's doing a good job at the front, but the Hydralisks on the right are largely untouched, and they are doing a lot of damage here. The Phoenix starting to lift up a couple Hydras, and he is starting to push and cut through DaNa's forces here. The hatchery at the front, the third hatchery, is in trouble. What he really needs is to kill the army. He needs to kill DaNa right now. If DaNa holds, he wins.
Now, Protoss only has 12 probes. 12 probes is not going to be enough to be functional later on, so he has to keep this army together. The less sophisticated the army is, the stronger the Zerg is going to be against it.
The Immortals are very key here for killing the very, very scary units here. The Hydras are starting to get through these Archons. Only one Archon left. I think DaNa is going to be able to do it here as he just starts to clean up the rest of DNS's army.
I'm sorry, did he get the hatchery? No, he did not. All right, doesn't matter. GG. DaNa wins game one. That was actually pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
We saw the Zerg do a really nice attack, but it seemed like he overstayed his welcome a little bit there. But when you kill that many workers, it's basically impossible to propel the game forward as a Protoss and come back.
I'll tell you what, Tasteless, I'm used to seeing a bowl of Lings shred through a probe line, but Lings with Hydralisk support running into a natural with muscular augments. I've never seen probes disappear so fast.
It's crazy. I want to point out something else as well that we saw back there. We saw the gateway wall there by where the third Nexus was. That does not help against Hydra Ling in that position. Zerg can actually exploit the Protoss in what he's trying to do to stay alive.
It actually helped the Zerg a little bit. I kind of agree with you there, because you take out that production, that was actually like 2/3 of his production, or maybe 1/3 of his production.
I think so.
Quite a lot of his production there.
Yeah, I think at least 1/3 of his production. But it was funny too, because Zerg, it seemed like almost like he had overdone it, because especially with like Ravagers, for instance, you can't really run away with Ravagers if the Protoss is really on top of what he's doing. So he did lose a little bit of that. But yeah, the hold by Zerg, that managed to close it out. Really nicely done. Why don't we go ahead and go to the analysis desk and see how the rest of these matches are going. Kalaris?
Thank you very much, Tasteless. That was an interesting game to start things off. DaNa doing very, very well in his first game. At the moment, though, currently on the desk, we did have Lambo and Elroy going on, as well as Mambo and versus TLO. So why don't you tell us what happened in the first game?
Pretty fun game on Abyssal Reef. Classic ZVZ, both players making roaches. TLO opened up with a couple of Lings, did some economic damage, but after that they both maxed out.
Yes.
TLO went creative, you know, 4 roaches in every base, tunneling claws, you know what he does. Yeah. He killed like 20 workers, but then you always have that classic scenario where one person has 165 army supply because you killed so many drones. So it actually looked a little dicey for TLO, but he did a really good job in taking the fight on the other side of the map and just biling all the way back to his base, and then eventually had enough units. So TLO's up 1-0.
Artosis, what happened in your match?
Well, I had Lambo versus Elroy going on, and it started out like very slow. They both went up to 3 bases before anything really happened, kind of in a roach type of play. And when Elroy started making some attacks, Lambo was hitting some counters with his Lings, killed some extra drones, plus defended well. And I mean, it was pretty straightforward, to be honest. Lambo was able to take that one pretty easily.
Okay, and I believe Todd eventually will have Stats' match, but currently not going on, right?
Speaking of starting slow, like these guys took forever to start their first game and just now started it, so...
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame that actually all of the games ended as this ended, because we could have quite easily jumped into them as well. But
well, the moral of the story is that the German Zergs are dominating.
yeah, doing very well. Good job, Zergs. Good job, Zergs. All right, well, that does it for us for the moment. We can head back to game number 2 with Tasteless and Maynard to see what's going to happen.
All right, guys, we are back. We'll be going into game number 2 shortly here. So DaNa in game 1, a really good job. He did overextend a little bit, but overall he seemed to be very solid. We actually didn't get to talk about this, but that warp prism that was shot down, that's kind of a bad tell on the mental state of DNS right now.
Yeah, you kind of, you know, the warp prism is your pushing tool because warping in at a proxy pylon doesn't really happen anymore. The warp prism is all about it. And it kind of felt like an anti-timing. Like with those gateways coming down, he's making 6 gateways with the Zerg, while the Zerg was attacking his third. Like it just, everything felt like a little bit late. He was a beat or 2 behind DaNa in that game. And we end up in a situation where the heavily favored French Protoss is actually down a map against the underdog here.
Yeah. You got to remember how much pressure is actually on these two guys. As much as you can practice and as much as you can play, it's a different beast when the world's watching, especially for the starting match here at the Intel Extreme Masters. Introducing our players in the bottom left, in the blue, he is DaNa.
There he is. Don't get to see him on camera very often these
Drink
days.
it in, nerds.
The top right. Currently down 1 map in the series, the French Protoss. This is DnS.
What was your first experience playing StarCraft with other people watching? And how weird was it? Like at a tournament or anything like that?
It was back in my hometown of Adelaide. There was a LAN that they ran back in like 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
I played against the Australian Terran who is a GM streamer now. His name's Death. He was my first ever competitive game in a tournament.
Oh, sick.
We ended up being great friends over time, but I mean, he crushed me so badly that I felt like, you know, all the color left my skin. I was actually pasty white, and like my eyes glazed over, and like.
Dude, it's hard, man. When people are watching you play, when you lose a match, the salt is real. Well, even if there's like just one of my friends in my house and they're watching me play and I lose, I'm like, don't look at me after I've lost the game.
Don't you touch me.
Don't you touch me. Don't you tell me what I did wrong in that game. But I mean, when you're in stakes this high, the starting match at Intel Extreme Masters, I really feel like, at least I imagine, because we don't know for sure, but I imagine the pressure is really on for DNS here. A couple of misplays there. It was okay, I guess, when he overextended with those adepts, but losing that warp prism was a really bad sign. Let's see if he can recuperate. Right now, DaNa really riding, I think, that confidence after a pretty solid win there in game 1.
And he actually had a great game 1 as well. We have to, like, these are players that you don't see. They're not your garden variety, like, household name players, let's be honest. Like, the household names are doing quite well, as to be expected. Sure. That's why they're household names, because they get so far in these tournaments. These kids have a lot to prove. We touched on it a bit in game 1, so the pressure is on a bit. This is their chance in the start of one of the biggest StarCraft II tournaments of history. They're here with their chance on the main stream here to just show everyone what they can do.
I love that we have a tournament like this, by the way.
It's nice to see
everybody here, all in one place, duking it out over the course of 6 days.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when it's all said and done, only one survives. It's so sick.
There can be only one.
There can only be one.
That's right.
So, in this game here, we see that Ling speed is on the way. 2 adepts now pushing out. Protoss, this is pretty par for the course, to be honest with you guys. Getting a Quake Nexus, Zerg just trying to drone up as much as he can while still having the Lings available to deflect any pressure from his opponent.
So the double gateway expand here, I believe it is 2 adepts here coming in. So these are the drone killers. They can right-click on drones and do a really good job. They're quite tanky. So with this shade out, he might be able to get a drone or 2, depending on how DaNa micros here.
Oh, almost got the spore planted to avoid that drone kill.
Decided to cancel the shade, so he's going to stick around a little bit longer here. Could be an overextension.
Ling's coming up now. One of these adepts, already bruised, should not be able to get out in one piece. The other adept should be able to get over here to the right side, assuming it's microed correctly, and escape, which it does just that. So going ahead and backing up.
Yeah, so not a ton of damage, but does get that one drone kill and a handful of Lings, so not too bad. We got the Stargate follow-up here for DNS, so a pretty similar opening, except for he has an extra gateway. DaNa coming in here just with the Overlord now to have a look. Scouting so key in this matchup.
Yeah, you really got to get a good read and see what your opponent's up to so you can respond accordingly. So we saw one Oracle in that last game. Let's see if we actually see the double Oracle this time around, along with the follow-up Void Ray tech.
I'm a big fan of the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
DnS is sticking with the Game 1 build here, except he just has a little bit more production this time.
And, you know, there's something else to keep in mind with tournaments like this as well, is that because everybody's played at the same time, there's not that much time to farm data on your opponent. As the tournament's progressing, you
kind of just have to hit them on EU ladder. This is like your practice zone, which is primarily where people practice in this in this tournament. A lot of the Europeans. We got the DnS heading out here with the Oracle, and there is a second Oracle follow-up. So there's your question answered for you, Tasteless. And DaNa is looking like her semi-regular build from last game as well. A bit more Roges though, and a little bit of a quicker layer, I believe.
That's right. So here is the layer coming in. Now let's see how many kills this Oracle can get. And
it's pretty effective in game 1.
Yep, 1, and that's totally fine to just kill that 1 there because he already lost all his shields. He has to back up now with that Oracle.
Now that's quite a lot of Adepts in the early game. Doesn't look like a lot, but 6 Adepts actually is quite powerful in this early stages. When you only have a handful of Roaches, I mean, Zerg does have the Defender's advantage, does have Queens, that sort of thing. An easy reinforcement path, but it is still pretty scary here. Actually, the Oracle could help out a lot here.
Yeah, you can actually pair the Oracle with the Adepts if you want to, but you're totally right. This many Adepts is enough. Oh, didn't actually get that drone.
Yeah, that was
there.
actually an awkward positioning there for the Adepts. He didn't find a nice spot there for them. It almost looked like he had a gap between the Extractor and the Roach Warren, but there actually, I don't think there's a gap there. I think he tried to squeeze on in.
Yeah, I think he tried to slip through, but couldn't quite get over there. So, yeah, 6 Adepts is definitely something you do have to respect. But what Protoss is really trying to do along with this is get a Nexus up, and Zerg really isn't allowed to devote any attention to that 3rd Nexus, because if Zerg were to do that, the Adepts would come in and kill all the workers.
So we see DnS doing something similar from the first game, and DaNa doing it as well, getting that Hydralisk Den, getting +1 attack as well, so it's going to be pretty powerful Hydralisk when they do hit the dance floor. And DnS, you know, he's pulling back to his 3rd Nexus, but he's got a little bit more room to breathe here, a bit more of a rush distance on Proxima Station than on Newkirk Precinct.
So these Oracles are coming in here now. Now 2 Oracles means drones are going to die very quickly. It's really up to the Zerg to be in just a very solid position before this all happens. Because once they get there, they're just going to one-shot any worker that comes in their way. Void Ray is now out, which is going to be used really to clean up the right side of the map here. Oh, a little bit of a misclick there, hitting that Extractor.
And the Void Ray, of course, does have the added benefit of being quite good against Roaches and Ravages, which is still quite popular in this matchup. But we see that DaNa does love his Hydralisks, and why not? Very, very good against the Stargate Gateway unit composition that DnS is going for here.
An important thing to note here as well is that I think that the Protoss's position here at the 3rd base is going to be a lot tougher for the Zerg to crack. In the last game, I think just positionally, he was able to get a pretty good army setup. This is a pretty tight little entrance here, and with the sentries there, force fields available, I don't think it would be wise for Zerg to push in, but let's go ahead and see what DaNa has in store for us.
I actually agree with you. I think that the 3rd is a lot easier to defend here than on Newkirk Precinct. You drop a couple more pylons there, you can have several pylon overcharges going on at the same time with, I mean, the robotics facility being at the front there's a little dangerous, but it's tucked in nice and close against that 3rd Nexus, so he should be okay. And the Warp Prism lives this time, so he's got his drone hit squad here with these 2 Adepts. Does get a couple.
So this is what we would call a pin maneuver here. He just wants to keep the Zerg's army back in the Zerg's base. This alleviates a lot of pressure for Protoss, and as you know, we're seeing this Zerg army stay back. You can see 6 gateways are actually being made, so there's about to be a huge production explosion on the Protoss's side of the map. Also the Templar Archives, which is of course completely integral to beating Zerg if the game goes on. For pretty much anything past 8 minutes, you have to have that tech available.
This is pretty much the exact same build from both players in Game 1, like the same unit compositions. Still has a double Oracle, just like Game 1. Void Ray came out. Warp Prism out, but not dead. And getting that Templar Archives out for those Archons to be very, very, very useful there for the Protoss later on.
So there's a Warp Prism down here in the bottom center, and you're almost waiting for the Zerg to try to leave, and then you're going to send that back in there. There is a drone over at the gold base, so, and of course this is kind of an inevitability on this map. It's super tempting for Zerg to take the gold base, because if Zerg keeps the gold base up for a couple minutes and Protoss doesn't do something tremendous to react to that move, Zerg probably just wins. You just win in a numbers game in the long run.
If it gets left up, it is a bit aggressive to take it. There's a little bit of a safer 4th location, but you know, it can work very well. And there's those extra pylons I'm talking about. When you get them spread across this opening like that, it's just really hard to go in.
And this is like a really good move here by DnS. You can definitely see that DnS is responding very well to what happened in Game 1 by having these pylons out here. It's going to be much tougher for Zerg to come in and do that much damage. Now, Zerg is still a threat over here, and it looks like he's going to try to push it. Now, with the Protoss wall, and if Protoss is forced to back up. It's going to be really tough to utilize the ranged units in that position. In fact, this may just be too many Zerg units anyway.
It's a ton of army here. It's about 40 supply up on the DNS army. And yeah, it's very high-tech army. There is a lot of tier 3 units here for DNS, but will there be enough is the big question. Zerg is starting to trickle in. Decent enough force fields to carve off those roaches from the Hydras.
I actually think Zerg might be able to take this right here, right now. The warp in from the warp prism, I don't believe it's going to be enough damage to compensate for what's happening here.
Oh, man.
The Robo unpowered. There's no direct response now to this many roaches on the map. The Nexus with no more shields. And I think this could be a game going to DaNa.
It could be a series going to DaNa, I think, Tasteless. This is really, really good for the Zerg. The third Nexus is all but forfeit. The tier 3 units, the Void Ray coming in and being very helpful, but it just doesn't have enough to buffer it. He doesn't have any support. The Immortal's doing a great job, but the Zerg's Hydralists are still alive, and they shred through this entire army here of DaNa, of DNS.
He's continuing to push forward here.
Yeah, even if he gets cleaned up.
I don't even think, I mean, these are the only 3 Immortals that are going to be in this game for a long time. Maybe not a long time because they're going to be dead in a second here. I think we're going to have to see DNS tap out as the macro from DaNa must be respected in this game.
Absolutely, and he's just rallying units across here, and rightfully so. Just holding that R button, getting that lava to turn into roaches, and just rallying across. That's all he needs to do at this point. Archon's being made here in desperation for DNS, but one of them's not going to finish, and the second one won't either.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, we're really seeing DNS digest the loss.
Yeah.
As DaNa really a force to be reckoned with, and you know, it's tough, man, when you're playing and the world's watching.
Yeah, and so favored as well by pretty much everyone on the counter and us as well.
You know, you got to respect this Zerg. This Zerg is just basically steamrolling this Protoss.
Oh my God.
I think it's basically the probability is 0 that any Protoss could ever recover from that. GG.
Yep, taps out there and ooh, DaNa.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I like this kid.
Pump?
I like that.
The hype is real.
That's how you win fans, Tasteless.
That's right.
I tell you what, if I was a pro gamer, I would absolutely flex after I win that game.
I think I am now a hashtag big fan.
Oh, there you go. Very nicely said, Tasteless.
Well, nicely done. I think that was really going to give him a lot of momentum going forward in this tournament. By the way, Poland has always had a lot of very good StarCraft players. Like,
and
even
StarCraft fans.
Yeah, but even way back in Brood War, like, you could look up online, like, the brackets for some of these Polish tournaments at, like, computer cafes. There's like 100 people signed up. I'm like, this is crazy. In my town in Kansas City, there were 9 of us. And I got rank 2 in that because my brother's day 9. I'm like, that was my story, guys.
Well, you know what? I didn't even want to bring up Adelaide, South Australia's StarCraft 1 scene, man. We just did not have one.
Really, seriously though, really nicely done by the Zerg. I want to say that there was some kind of strategic brilliance that happened in game number 2, but really it was like, that guy was a Zerg factory. He just made too much. He made a bunch of units. He 1-8 across the map. And he killed him.
Yeah, DNS had a
Hope
game
you're
plan.
Taking notes at home.
Yeah, if you're playing from home. Yeah. DNS had a game plan, and I mean, two games in a row, DaNa just counted it, and that was the series there. So we're still going to be heading to a short break here, and then we'll have some more games and more analysis going up for you guys. So stick around. This is the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice Day 1.
GG.